Well, ladies, and gentlefolk, spooky season is upon us. So, with that, let us dive into one of the most truly haunting topics in TTRPGs, the Total Party Kill. Mwahaha! I'm Anne Richmond, aka Heartsinger, the head bard in charge around these parts, and I want you to raise your hand if you out there have experienced a TPK, or Total Party Kill for the uninitiative. Hey y'all, it's me. I have now sat on both sides of the table for a Total Party Kill, and it took almost a full decade for me to have both experiences. So I thought I'd put together some of my tips for how to handle this situation should you find yourself experiencing it at the table. My first tip is to make sure that you've covered the potential of this happening during session 0. It's important that everybody knows what they're consenting to as far as themes that could come up. And I have found, especially as I've really religiously done these session 0 surveys, that there are more people than you would think that are uncomfortable with character death in TTRPG storytelling, or they want to have a longer conversation about it, let alone the idea that the entire party could go up in flames at some point or other. So it's important that everybody is aware of the level of challenge that they've consented to, and that they understand that things are gonna get tense, that their characters are going to face adversity. And if you're on the same page about all of the elements that could entail, then you should be golden. But it's definitely something you're going to want to mention along with all of the other things that you want to cover at session 0. So assuming that everybody at the table signed up for the type of game that could include adversity up to and including a total party kill, it's important to remember that a DM wiping you all from the face of the planet doesn't really serve a story that they care about telling. If a TPK occurs, give them the grace to understand that they are not out here to, punish you per se. They may have something on the other side of that planned. You may find yourself in the Raven Queen's Hall of Memories searching for your lost soul and then having to convince her that you deserve another chance to live again and fight to finish whatever quest you're on. Or maybe you weren't all killed. You were nursed back to life to be tapped for information by the enemy, and you'll all find yourself imprisoned and have to find a way to escape. The DM wants their story to go on, and it is unlikely that they are going to throw you into a TPK and arrest you from the ability to latch on to the thread of the story and have it continue. And just as I think players need to have a little bit of empathy for what the DM has to orchestrate in the face of a TPK, I think DMs also need to have empathy for what the players are experiencing, because a TPK can feel mysterious and awesome, or it can feel like your agency was just ripped away from you and it's the worst experience you've ever had at the table. Or it could be some mixture of those things. It brings up a lot of complicated feelings for people. Personally, I'm a fan of taking prisoners or fudging numbers if you need to, especially if you're really just trying to get a sense of the balance of the game. I'm not a fan of dishing out super deadly encounters at lower levels. I like to give them some magic items and get them a chance to get to know and care about their characters and understand the mechanics of the game before I throw them something that could even be close to a TPK. And I also like to save those super deadly or super dangerous encounters for moments in the story that really matter. And of course, nobody's Nerfic, and you might be playing an adventure like Hoard of the Dragon Queen that was published before they even completed designing 5th edition totally. So it's hard to know sometimes when you're getting started if you're putting the players in a position to have a TPK. But do your best when you do know to have some kind of plan for what's on the other side of it. If the bad guy wins, have some kind of cliffhanger epilogue, whether it's news of the party's failure reaching the town that they're based in, or the ears of a beloved NPC that will mourn them, or maybe the cataclysmic event that they were trying to prevent actually happens and comes to pass, and then we fast forward to the world as it is now that there are new circumstances and a new evil to thwart on the horizon. TPKs always feel better when the story can continue and you, as the DM, return agency to the players so that they can pick up where the story was left off. So how do you get practice handling something like this? I find with larger campaigns, it's scary to put players in a position to lose something that they could have been building on for years at a time. So I like to practice with tough one-shots. Usually there's a little less emotion on both sides of the table involved here. You can practice what it's like to handle character death and create these types of epilogues and new threads to inspire new stories. Recently, I had an epic TPK at Gen Con. I mentioned it in my video at the time, where this party faced off against a Lich Empress. And unfortunately, they came very close to defeating her, but didn't get quite there. And while I think I could have absolutely been like, oh no, well, you're all dead. Well, good try, everybody. Thanks for playing. I think I was able to give them a little bit more to hold on to, because my epilogue was the Lich Empress raising these heroes from the dead and being impressed by how far they got and turning them into her generals to march on their hometown and lay waste to the people they called friends and family. And while I was fairly satisfied with that epilogue, I think all the time about what could I have done differently? Could I have made this more satisfying? Could I have returned more agency to the players in the face of this TPK? And so now I'm thinking, after the Lich Empress raises them and they rise up as generals in her army, should I have had them maybe, describe themselves and their, undead counterparts and tell us about, what it's like to feel yourself compelled to march on your hometown? Where would you have started? How would they have destroyed it? Allowing them to have the fun of the tragedy and get to be in control of that instead of having, the story taken away from them at that point. If you've given them new circumstances, they should be allowed to operate within them and have some amount of control on it. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the story you're telling together. And so always ask yourself, if you trust the people at your table and you're having a great time, how can I let them play around with this? How can I let them, still hold the reins even when it means the end of a character storyline? The last thing I want to leave you with is that whether it's a TPK or something else, if something starts to feel icky or uncomfortable, check in with your players. Nobody says the game has to go full blast until you say, well, that's it for this session. See you next week. If you notice that people are sad or upset, pause. Use an X card. I mean, there are lots of ways to sort of call the game to a halt when things feel icky, and check in. Make sure that everybody is still having fun. And if they're not, talk about why that is and be open to having that conversation. And as much as you're able to, whether you're the player or the DM, don't be defensive. Be open to hearing how people are feeling and to adjusting how the story is going to move forward from there. Sometimes people go along with things because they think it's all going to be okay. And then there's this TPK and it's all predicated on a decision that they felt like they didn't get to actually make, or that maybe some agency was taken away or an assumption was made about what the characters were doing, and you want to roll back time. You can. If you feel like everybody sort of fucked something up, go back and take it again and agree together where you're going to take the story from and then move through the battle again. Is that my favorite thing in the world? No, but nothing is worth sacrificing the mental health and the happiness of my friends. And that's what I want you to remember, that even in the face of a TPK, everyone should still feel like friends at the table. You're not actually battling each other. You're creating the story together. And if you start treating it like you're actually on opposite sides when in fact you're really both working towards the same goal, that lack of communication and that combativeness is when you end up with these really unfortunate, traumatic TPK nightmares that you hear about from players. So that's what I want you to do. If you learn nothing from this, don't be afraid to stop and check in and make sure everybody is still on the same page about how they're feeling about the game and what's happening. And like I said, nobody's perfect. I am always trying to learn more, so I would love to hear, have you had a TPK at your table? Was it handled well? Did you have a good time with it? Tell me in the comments below. Share with each other so we can all learn. And if you found that this video was helpful in terms of helping you prepare for the eventuality of a TPK, then by all means, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and come back for more. And in the meantime, get out there and live your quest life. Bye! TPK! I was last bard standing, 3 fails, no heals. That's how it feels. Feels bad to TPK. Annie meets D&D. What will they think of next?